Alright, guys. So I'm gonna try and keep this short as I possibly can. Like I did a Minus World commentary, and I wanted to keep that short. That went over like a half hour or something like that. So I'm gonna try and keep the stuff I do kind of general. Like I want to give a little more insight though for anybody that doesn't know much about either the game or the category. I'm not somebody that like has a ton of information, is like super intelligent when it comes to this game and knows all why things happen. But I'll try and show or share my knowledge with you guys a little bit, just a little bit with the category, because I know Thomcar, Crack. I don't know if you guys all play this game that much and know it. So I'll start by just giving a little background with me in the category. Um, I started back in January-ish, February-ish, messing around with Minus World and learning that setup and everything like that. I started with there's several different ways you can clip in 1-2, 1-2 being like the biggest level for these categories. You can clip using you can grab a mushroom, and there's a way of doing a clip through the wall at the end of 1-2 with Big Mario, which is considered the easiest. So I started learning that. I then started learning 1-2G after I got a good time with that, and eventually Blaze It down the line for B5-4. Um, so after messing around with Minus World a little bit, though, I realized, hey, I can do Minus World. I might as well do B5-4 because it's just one pipe over. Makes sense. It's another category I can use this glitch for, this trick. Um, so yeah, it basically became kind of a side category. I got a Minus World time. I was doing 80% and stuff. I would come to this category every once in a while. Um, but it started definitely as a side category, with my goal being like a 255, 256 with 1-2G after I started messing with it. Um, and I knew Blaze It was faster. I knew it was or a frame rule or so with the slow setup faster than 1-2G. I just didn't know how to do it, how to set it up. I feel like Blaze It's the type of thing that somebody kind of has to tell you what to do and kind of show you in a way. I feel like there are a few videos online. If you go to the resources in SMB, there's like a task video of 1-2 Blaze It and everything like that. But with everything with subpixels too, learning about what exact subpixels you need, how to read that on the practice ROM, like I really, at least for me, I had to have somebody. So eventually, Nifsky was able to show me Blaze It, and I was able to get better times with it. So shout out Nifsky for teaching me it. Definitely, I would say 1-2G is harder than Blaze It. I'm going to run through 1-1 because you guys, for the most part, know this. It's basically, even if you don't really know the game that well, I feel like you understand 1-1. That was a reset. This is the actual run starting now. But yeah, and then I started with Blaze It. I learned a slower, much easier setup than the faster one. And then kind of just progressed into learning the faster setup, and then eventually going for optimal Blaze It, which I'll talk a little bit about. So the only thing worth like bringing up here is I don't do FPG, flagpole glitch, which saves a frame rule. So because of that, this run is pretty beatable for other people that do flagpole glitch. I don't have any interest or motivation in learning flagpole glitch, for the big sense that I kind of base all of my tricks that I need to know, other than Blaze It 1-2G, because those are for side categories. I base those type of tricks, though, on my any percent. And right now, for any percent, the next step is learning Bullet Bill glitch. I'm not going back to any percent hardcore grinding for that for a little while anyway. And so that will take me a while. And then at that point, then once I get a good run, 457, then you start thinking about FPG. So that's much farther down the line, and who knows if even when I get BBG one day, if I even want to do FPG. I've seen so many people reset over and over and over and over again. It just does not look fun to do. It doesn't look fun. So that's the only thing really worth saying with 1-1. We don't do FPG, so the run is very beatable for somebody that does do it. which is fine because again, that's not something I want to really pick up. So Blazed. We'll talk a little bit about the setup here. This setup was, for me personally, was the trickiest part of learning Blazed, of learning this the faster setup for it. This setup here, I'll show real quick, is right there. When you do this jump, you basically you run until you're coming off of the question mark block. And then as soon as you start to fall off, a little before even, you let go of sprint. And then as soon as you land here, you press sprint and then jump a few frames different from each other. So I messed this up a ton. Basically, if you press A and B on the wrong timing, even if you're slightly off, you'll get bad subpixels. If you press them together, too quickly together, Mario will lose all of his speed and he'll do a very slow, ugly looking jump. And if you don't do it, if you don't let go of sprint enough, Mario won't slow down at all, so he won't gain any new subpixels. So this was definitely the trickiest part for me. So getting that set up and then being able to do the movement. So another thing about this movement here is this jump, this Koopa and these two Goombas here are usually it's not really a tricky section. You just do a 1 to 3 frame jump. Like if you were to doing any percent, 1 to 3 frames and then jump over the next guys. But because we did our setup and we slowed Mario down a little bit, this jump is actually slightly tighter. Not too much tighter, but tight enough that it's annoying. It's much more annoying than any percent for me. And even like you see this jump off this, like I almost hit this Koopa. I was very close to not this Koopa, this Koopa's hitbox. And I learned that doing a jump as early as possible, like you see how early I'm jumping, literally as soon as Mario pops his head. But so that messed me up a little bit, but got a little used to it with practice. These pipe jumps are also could be slightly annoying, but they're not. Again, when it comes to Blaze it's not really the big deal of it. Another thing worth noting is to keep your subpixels. So after I do the setup and I get to this point, you need to be holding right and sprint the entire time. If I tap left for any reason, if I let go of sprint for any reason, boom, different subpixels. So to keep these good subpixels, you have to keep going. Like a lot of times with any percent with the Koopa jump before, you're able to hold left and it makes it slightly easier. You're able to hold left, not here, I'm sorry. Like right here, you hold left a little bit, but if you do that with this category, you're not able to clip. I mean, you could still get really lucky and get the subpixels you need by holding left there, but then you're literally putting it, like you shouldn't even do a setup then. You're literally just putting all in RNG at that point, which is what we try and avoid with this run. With Blazed itself, Blazed's not really that hard. It looks cool. It looks like it would be something super hard, but it's not. At least in my opinion, I was able to pick up Blazed pretty quickly. I still, to this day, think that 1-2G is harder than Blazed, even the unoptimal setup I do where I run off. The only thing that's kind of tricky is when going for optimal Blazed, it has to be like a pretty fast Blazed. So the big thing about it is the differences I made between this Blazed and my Blazed before was when I jump. And again, I'll try and explain this as best as I can. I don't know exactly why these things happen, but from Nivsky, when you jump and you let go of right, it makes you clip further into the pipe, from what I understand, which makes it obviously quicker. You have to jump less, you'll be more into the pipe. Again, I don't know why that happens, why that's the thing, but again, something that I was told to do. Also, another thing too is your mashing speed. You have to have a pretty quick mash here, and it was kind of, when it came to practicing, it was kind of finding a rhythm, where it's a really fast mash, but I kind of had a rhythm every time I did the same type of mash. It's also important, I noted as well, to kind of delay your mash a teeny bit until you're in the wall. So you see how it's kind of delayed? Like I don't start mashing here. I'm mashing 1 frame more. Where Mario is already like halfway into the wall. And that's another thing. When you delay your mash, if you don't delay your mash and you mash it really early, Mario will just pop out a lot of times. Yeah, that jump is super brutal for an NES controller for sure. But yeah, so that's all I'll really say about Blaze It. It wasn't that difficult. Getting the optimal frame roll was definitely more difficult just because it had to be fast. And if you jump one time extra or something like that, you'll lose the frame roll. So I probably saved this frame roll by literally like I'll probably say I would say 2 frames. I saved the frame roll by. So it's very tight frame roll. Again, not like crazy hard to get, but if you make a little mistake, you're not gonna get it. So another thing I'll note too before we go into World 5 is why I'll again very briefly explain a little bit why this trick happens, why I'm able to go to World 5. And again, I have no idea why this happens, but this is basically when you don't load the warp zone. Usually, if you run up top here and come around, you'll get the message that says "Welcome to the warp zone." It'll say worlds 2, 3, 4. But for whatever reason, when you don't load this warp zone, the game thinks this warp zone is 4-2's warp zone. So not the warp zone when you hit the vine block and climb up the vine, but if you keep going to the end of the level and you follow the top, kind of like 1-2, it will give you a warp zone where it's just one pipe and it's World 5 in the middle. So because it thinks it's 4-2, these pipes become like the pipes in 4-2, where these two take you to Minus World, where I think it's 36. Don't quote me on it. And I guess they needed to have these sprites here for whatever reason. They needed to keep it 3. So in 4-2, what they ended up doing was taking out the pipes, so there's no way of getting to Minus World. But since the pipes are here, there's an entrance, something like that. But generally speaking, that's why the middle pipe is 5, because it's copying the 4-2 warp zone. So, and you'll even see when I go down the pipe, the 5 will pop up. See, welcome to the warp zone, warp 5. So, all right. World 5 itself is not too bad. The only thing that's super monka for me in World 5 is this pipe jump right here. I'm notorious for messing this up. I found a visual cue from watching one of Kozmic's videos where he said he jumps right here at the beginning of this fence, and I think that's helped. But I've had times where I'll die here, I'll mess up movement, I'll fall into this crack here. I've had times where my pipe jump is just so abysmally slow that I lose a frame rule. So it can just be a little monka, especially after doing a Blaze It. You want to be able to get through it and keep going with the run. Other than that, though, World 5, and I'll kind of just play it as I'm talking, World 5, especially 5-1, is pretty, it should be easy. Now, nerves always come in. So at this point, I didn't think I was going to get it this quickly, so I'm very nervous. So nerves and stuff like that definitely come in and play a part, even though these levels aren't too tricky when you practice them a decent amount. So 5-1 is pretty, other than the pipe jump, it's pretty easy. You kind of just running and jumping over things. Now, I will say, actually, before we move on, let me run it back a little bit, run it back a little quicker. Before doing these runs, and I feel like you have to do this with B5-4, is you got to do your homework and realize what frame rule you're going to be on, and realize and understand and learn what the patterns are going to be. You can get away, like with Warpless, I didn't know the patterns, you can get away with it. But in B5-4, I mean, obviously you can get away with it too, but like with how short of a category this is, you really want every level to be as fast as possible. So you really should know. So like a lot of times, some of the frame rules will have a cannon that shoots here. It's actually, I feel like it's more common for the cannon to shoot here at some point when I'm trying to jump over it. But I found a frame rule where it doesn't shoot at all if I make it there at a certain speed. So that's one example. I'll go over the other examples too of me doing that. 5-2 is the same type of thing where like it's not super hard, but it's tricky. You know what I mean? Or it's not tricky. I'm sorry. I'm not making sense. It's not super hard, but when you're nervous and you're doing runs, and I'm on like a crazy pace, it's very easy to get an input E, and it's very easy to get nervous and ruin the run. I've done it before. So it's not, I wouldn't, this is not a hard level by any means, but just with nerves and stuff like that, like this beginning jump is what scares the crap out of me. This cannon, so again, I know the pattern. I know this cannon is never gonna hit me, no matter what. But it's, for me at least, me being bad, it's very easy for me to get my input eaten on the stairs. Um, so again, I knew that cannon wasn't gonna, that cannon shot was gonna hit me. Obviously, there are some frame rules where that will hit you right in the mouth if you try and do what I just did. So again, that's just learning it. There's too much RNG to not know the patterns for World 5. There's literally every level has one thing. At least one thing. So right here is where inputs get eaten for sure. And this jump right here is more monka than it looks. It has to be like right at the edge. If you jump slightly too early, what will end up happening is you'll bonk right here. You'll land here and bonk into this and the run's dead. And I've had plenty of times where I run off here by accident. I jump too late and run off. And then what will happen is you have this Koopa here. And I have not found a way to not lose speed and get past the Koopa when falling down here. I've not. If there is one, you know, I would love to know. And there is an FPG that the world record does for 5.2, which has a setup to it and everything. I don't know much about it, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But it looks insanely hard. It definitely looks insane. Like, if you guys haven't seen the B54 world record, two people tied with it right now. The 5.2 FPG looks crazy. Something I will probably never do. All right. Anyway, 5.3, again, very easy level when you know what's happening. All these cannons, if you don't know, yeah, they're, I guess, random, quote unquote, if you don't know what's coming, but since we know, this level actually becomes really easy. It could be a tricky level or it could be an easy level, depending on if you know where these bullets are going to be. Like with Warpless, me not knowing the patterns, it was kind of just like, oh god, please be a good pattern, don't screw me over. So, other than that though, 5.3 again, you know the bullet pattern, you just keep going with that. 5.4, again, we get good bars here because we know the pattern. You're gonna hear me saying that. I mean, I've already said it like 80 times, but a lot of this run is having a frame rule that's set up, that so you're set up for success, that you can confidently go throughout the run after hitting the harder tricks. Like, the big parts of this run are Blaze It, you know, FPGs if you do them. But basically, like, once you hit World 5, unless you're doing 5.2 FPG, like, you should be able to clutch the run out. You know what I mean? Like, you should, especially when you know when things are coming. So, again, like, these bars coming up here, these are all usually, they don't hit you. But this last bar right here that you'll see me jump over, depending on the frame rule, it can be like this. It can be really easy to jump over. You just do a nice little jump right there, like so. It can be, like, up here-ish, where, like, or, like, somewhere around here when you're trying to jump over it, and you have to do a frame-perfect jump to survive. And then other times, it will be completely impossible. Like, the bar will be, like, here or something, and it's just, you die. You either wait for it or you die. So again, we got to limit the amount of RNG and know that. So going into this level on the pace I'm at, I knew that this bar would be good. So that's something that's a little scary. Other than that, though, like, this flame can be low here, and you have to jump over quickly, but that's not, like, tricky or anything. Full jump, again, kind of a delayed jump. You want to jump right at the edge here to make it. Again, these boos also can be really low, where it feels, I mean, I'm not going to comment on things I don't know exactly, so I don't know if some boos are literally impossible, and some boos aren't. But with this little method where I do, like, flick jumps, sometimes the boos will be so low, it'll be, like, right here, that there's no way I can flick under it. So, for sure, like, again, I knew these boos were high as hell, too, so, you know, I didn't even have to, like, stress it. I didn't have to do, like, a 1 or 2 frame jump or something. And the only thing here that's important is to make sure you don't lose any frames on the axe, which, again, is very easy, but with nerves, you never know. I could do a little extra of a jump and lose a few frames. Because it's a type of category that it's so short that, like, not losing a frame on the axe, not losing, you know, any frame rules in any of the levels. And something I didn't mention about that's also a little thing is that in 5.2 there's a where like a few of the Hammer Bros are, you can get a lag. I guess I don't know if it's called a lag frame or just you can get lag there, which can make your run. I want to say like maybe like zero point 0.1 milliseconds slower or something like that, somewhere around that area. I don't know exactly. Again, don't quote me on these stats. But it can make it slightly slower too. Luckily, with this run, I didn't get any lag in 5.2, so that was nice. We didn't lose any time over that. But other than that, though, again, this is something that I did not think that I would be able to get a 253, like, period. Like, I mean, I knew it would be possible for me, but I thought, like, man, it's going to be, like, like, why am I even doing this, like, type mindset that I had. So the fact that I was able to pull it off, too, super hype, you know, basically just in closing with this run, this is as far as I'm gonna go with B54. Unless I learn FPG somewhere down the line, and I say, okay, I want to improve it by 1 frame rule. Like, Lord knows if this like that, there's a chance that might not even ever happen. But right now, I am so happy with this time. You know, I don't do commentaries often, but because I'm so happy with it, I decided to. I felt like I really grinded it too. I pushed it by 1 frame rule at a time, 1 frame rule until we finally got to 253. So this probably, and don't quote me, but probably this is as far as I'm going to go with this category, unless like more frame rules other than FPG are discovered that I feel confident that I could do, but chances are that's not going to happen. Knock on wood. But yeah, and again, this time is very beatable. This time, like, all it's gonna take is somebody to do 1-1 FPG with optimal blaze it to beat it. So I'm sure right now I'm somewhere. I think I'm like 4th or 5th or something on the leaderboard. But that will, this run will be beaten. More people will beat it. If I feel like category extensions kind of go through phases where like one category extension is really popular for like a month or like a few weeks or something, and then it will be another one. So I'm sure somewhere down the line, Beat 5.4 will get popular. People will start running it and start surpassing this time. But again, for me, it's really just about getting the 253. It's really, and this is not just with this game, with this category, but my philosophy as a speedrunner in general, which is just personal progression, being able to get times that you really have to push yourself for and times that you think that you can achieve personally. So for me, this was an amazing run, and I will forever be happy with this run. Forever.